I'm going to tell you something disturbing. You're living in an illusion. Not an abstract philosophical illusion, but a concrete, measurable illusion that can be demonstrated in a laboratory. Your brain, that incredible 1.5 kilogram machine that allows you to read these words, is actively lying to you about the nature of reality. And the strangest part? It needs to lie, because if it showed you what's really happening, you simply wouldn't be able to function. Let me start with something simple. Look at your hand. Go ahead, look. You see a solid hand, right? 5 fingers, skin, nails. It looks real. It looks solid. If you slam it on the table, it will hurt. You have no doubt whatsoever that your hand exists, that it is a real, solid, continuous thing. Now comes the funny part. Your hand doesn't exist in the way you think it does, and your brain knows this, but it's hiding it from you. Let's zoom in. Closer. Closer still. If you could see your hand at the atomic level, do you know what you would see? Practically nothing. Empty space. Your atoms are 99.99% empty space. The nucleus of the atom is so small compared to the entire atom that if the nucleus were a marble in the center of a football stadium, the electrons would be orbiting up in the stands. And in the middle, nothing. Vacuum. Absolute emptiness. So when you look at your solid hand, what you're really seeing is a diffuse cloud of subatomic particles, separated by immense distances, held together by electromagnetic forces. There's no real solidity there. The sensation of solidity you feel when you touch something is just electrons, from one cloud of atoms repelling electrons from another cloud of atoms. You never really touch anything. Never in your entire life have you truly touched anything. But your brain doesn't show you that. It shows you a solid hand because that's what you need to survive. Your ancestors who could pick fruit, hold tools, climb trees, they survived. Those who stood paralyzed thinking, wait, this is just a quantum probability cloud, well, they left no descendants. So your brain evolved to give you a simplified, functional version of reality, a version that is useful but fundamentally false. And the hand is just the beginning. Let's talk about something even more basic, color. You think you know what color is. Apples are red, the sky is blue, the grass is green. Colors are properties of objects, right? Wrong. Completely wrong. Colors don't exist in the physical world, not at all. Here's what really happens. Objects absorb and reflect different wavelengths of light. A red apple absorbs most wavelengths and reflects mainly wavelengths around 650 nanometers. These photons enter your eye, hit specialized cells in your retina called cones, which fire electrical signals to your brain. And then, and only then, your brain creates the subjective experience that you call red. But red doesn't exist in photons. Photons have no color. They are just tiny packets of energy vibrating at a certain frequency. The experience of red, that vivid, unmistakable sensation you get when you see an apple, is a complete invention of your brain. A controlled hallucination that your brain projects onto the world. And here's the part that will blow your mind. You'll never know if the red you see is the same red I see. We can agree that we both see red when we look at an apple, but the internal subjective experience could be completely different. What you call red might look like what I call blue in my internal experience, and we would never know, because we have no way to directly compare subjective experiences. This isn't empty philosophy. It's real neuroscience. Different people have slightly different numbers of cones in their retinas. Some people have 4 types of cones instead of 3 and can see colors you literally can't imagine. Some animals see in the ultraviolet. Snakes see in the infrared. A mantis shrimp has 16 different types of color receptors and lives in a world of colors so rich it would be completely incomprehensible to you. Your brain doesn't show you the complete electromagnetic spectrum. It shows you a tiny narrow band and calls it visible light. And within that narrow band, it invents colors to help you categorize different wavelengths. It's practical, it's useful, but it's not real. Now let's talk about time, because things get really disturbing here. You feel time passing, right? You feel that there is a now, a present moment that is always moving from the past to the future. You remember the past, live in the present, anticipate the future. It seems obvious. It seems like it couldn't be any other way. But your brain is deceiving you. The now you're experiencing doesn't exist, not in the way you think it does. Here's a simple experiment. Clap your hands. A single loud clap. You heard the sound at the same instant you felt your hands touch, right? It all happened together, simultaneously, in a single now. Wrong. The touch of your hands created a mechanical vibration that traveled through your nerves to your brain at a certain speed. The sound traveled through the air at a completely different speed, entered your ears, made your eardrums vibrate, and these vibrations were converted into electrical signals that traveled to your brain. These two signals, touch and sound, arrived in your brain at different times, but your brain synchronized them. It delayed one, sped up the other, and presented you with an edited reality where they happened simultaneously. Your brain is constantly doing this. It's always gathering information that arrives at different times, from different sources, processing everything, editing it, and presenting you with a coherent narrative that it calls now. But this now is actually about 300 milliseconds in the past. You're always living in the past, in an edited recording, and thinking it's live. And it gets worse, because the time you experience isn't constant. It speeds up and slows down depending on what you're doing, your emotional state, your age. Have you ever noticed how time flies when you're having fun but drags when you're bored? This isn't a metaphor. Your brain literally processes time differently in different situations. When you're in an emergency, a car accident, a fall, time seems to slow down. People report seeing things happening in slow motion. Why? Because your brain goes into high alert mode and starts recording memories with much more detail. When you remember it later, all that extra information makes it seem like the event lasted longer than it actually did. Your brain literally rewrites your temporal experience. And as you get older, time speeds up. Have you ever noticed how a year when you were 10 years old seemed to last an eternity, but now the years fly by? There are several theories about why this happens. One is that when you're a child, everything is new, so your brain is constantly recording detailed memories. But as an adult, most of your life is routine, so your brain records less. And when you look back, periods with few memories seem to have passed quickly. Another theory is proportionality. When you are 10 years old, 1 year is 10% of your entire life. When you are 50, 1 year is only 2%. Proportionally, each year becomes a smaller fraction of your total experience, so it seems to pass more quickly. But the point is, the passage of time that you experience is not objective. It's not a precise clock marking uniform seconds. It's a subjective construct of your brain, variable, malleable, constantly edited. Now let me tell you about space, about your position in the world, because here your brain is doing incredible juggling acts that you don't even realize. Close your eyes. Now touch your nose with your index finger. Did you manage it? Of course you did, easy. But stop for a second and think about what you just did. You knew where your finger was in space, even without seeing it. You knew where your nose was. You commanded muscles in your arm, shoulder, and neck to move your finger in a precise three-dimensional trajectory to a target you weren't seeing. This seems trivial because you do it all the time, but it's absolutely extraordinary. Your brain is maintaining a real-time internal map of the position of every part of your body in three-dimensional space. This sense is called proprioception, and most people don't even know it exists because it works so perfectly that it's invisible. But sometimes it goes wrong. There is a neurological condition where people lose proprioception. They intellectually know where their limbs should be, but they can't feel them. A famous woman with this condition had to relearn how to walk, eat, and do everything using only sight. If she turned off the lights, she would immediately collapse because, without seeing her limbs, she had no idea where they were. To you, your body seems like something you own, something you naturally control. But this is an illusion created by an incredibly complex neurological system working perfectly behind the scenes. When this system fails, you realize you never had direct control over your body. You only had the illusion of control. And here's something even stranger. Your brain can be tricked about where your body ends and the world begins. There's a famous experiment called the rubber hand illusion. It works like this. You put your hand under a table where you can't see it. On top of the table, visible to you, is a fake rubber hand. Then someone strokes your hidden real hand and the rubber hand at the same time, in a synchronized way. After a few minutes, your brain starts to feel that the rubber hand is your real hand. And if someone suddenly hits the rubber hand with a hammer, you'll have a visceral shock reaction because your brain truly believes that rubber hand is part of you. Your brain doesn't have direct access to reality. It sits in a dark box, your skull, receiving electrical signals from your senses. And based on these signals, it constructs a model of reality. Usually, this model is quite accurate because evolutionary accuracy was important for survival. But the model is not reality. It's an interpretation, a translation, a simplification. And sometimes the model is completely wrong. Let me give you an example that will scare you. You have a blind spot in each eye, a literal hole in your visual field where no information is reaching you because that's where the optic nerve exits the retina. You should see two black holes in your visual field all the time, but you don't see it. Why? Because your brain fills in the gaps. It invents information based on what's around the blind spot and shows you a complete continuous image. You're constantly seeing things that aren't really there, hallucinations created by your brain to fill in gaps in your sensory data. And it's not just the blind spot. Your brain is constantly doing this with everything. When you look around a room, you get the impression that you're seeing the entire room in high resolution simultaneously. But that's false. Your eyes only have high resolution in a tiny area in the center, the fovea. Everything in your peripheral vision is blurry and low resolution, but your brain hides this from you. It moves your eyes rapidly, saccades are called this, focusing on different parts of the scene, and then stitches it all together into a continuous mental panorama. And it makes you believe you saw everything at the same time. You don't see reality. You see a virtual reality created by your brain, based on limited sensory data, heavily edited, with gaps filled by guesswork, presented to you as if it were objective and complete. Now let's talk about something truly disturbing, free will, or the lack thereof. You think you make decisions consciously, right? You think about the options, weigh the pros and cons, and then consciously choose a course of action. That's fundamental to your experience as a human being. You are an agent who makes choices. But there are neuroscience experiments that suggest something very different. The most famous was done by a scientist named Benjamin Libet in the 1980s. He asked people to decide, at any moment, whether to press a button. Meanwhile, he monitored their brain activity, and he discovered something shocking. The brain began preparing to press the button up to half a second before the person consciously reported having decided to press it. Let me repeat that. Your brain had already initiated the action before you consciously decided to take it. Your brain decided first, and only then did your consciousness become aware and believe it had made the decision. This has been replicated many times with increasingly better technology. Some studies can predict which choice you will make up to 7 seconds in advance, based on patterns of brain activity, before you are consciously aware of what choice you will make. What does this mean? It means that perhaps your consciousness isn't in control. Perhaps decisions are being made by unconscious processes in your brain, and your consciousness is merely observing afterward and creating a narrative where you were in control the entire time. You are a passenger in your own brain, watching decisions being made and thinking you are driving. This makes evolutionary sense. Conscious processes are slow. They use a lot of energy. If you had to consciously decide every little action, like how to move each muscle when you walk, how to constantly adjust your balance, you would be incredibly inefficient. So most decisions and actions are made unconsciously, automatically by ancient parts of the brain that evolved long before consciousness appeared. And your conscience? It can be something like a narrator, creating post-facto stories about why you did what you did, giving you the illusion of being in control. There are neurological cases that support this. Patients with split brain, people who have had the nerve bundle connecting the two cerebral hemispheres severed, usually to treat severe epilepsy, show something incredible. You can show an image only to their right hemisphere and have them perform an action based on that image. But the left hemisphere, where language is located, didn't see the image. So when you ask why they performed that action, the left hemisphere invents a reason. It literally fabricates a plausible explanation, believing in it completely, even if it's totally wrong. Your brain does this all the time. You act for reasons you don't fully understand, and then you fabricate rational explanations after the fact, and you believe those explanations, and you call them your intentions. Now, before you have a complete existential panic, let me tell you, all of this is normal. This is simply how brains work. Your brain wasn't made to show you objective reality. It was made to keep you alive, to help you reproduce, to allow you to navigate a complex and dangerous world. And it does this brilliantly. It gives you colors to help identify ripe fruit and predators. It gives you the illusion of continuous time to help you plan and remember. It gives you a sense of solidity to allow you to manipulate objects. It gives you the illusion of free will to motivate you to make plans and work towards goals. These are useful tools, evolutionary shortcuts, but they are not the fundamental truth of reality. And here's the truly remarkable part. Your brain can go beyond these limitations, not directly. You'll never see atoms with the naked eye. You'll never directly experience time as physicists describe it. But you can use mathematics, logic, experiments, scientific instruments. You can build telescopes to see what your eyes cannot, microscopes to see the infinitely small, particle accelerators to explore the structure of matter, equations to model things that cannot be visualized. You can overcome the limitations of your brain by using your brain. You can discover truths about the universe that completely contradict your direct experience. And you can accept these truths because the evidence is overwhelming, even when they make your head hurt. This is what makes humans extraordinary. We are not smarter than other animals merely by degree. We are different in kind. A chimpanzee can use tools, can solve puzzles, can even have a rudimentary culture. But a chimpanzee will never discover quantum mechanics. It will never understand that time is relative. It will never realize that it is living in a reality constructed by its brain. But you can. You can know your brain is deceiving you and still appreciate the trick. You can understand that colors don't exist and still love a sunset. You can know that your now is a construct and still live fully in the present moment. You can question free will and still make meaningful choices. Because in the end, illusion is all you have. You can't escape your brain. You can't step outside your subjective perspective and see the universe from an objective, divine point of view. You're trapped inside your own head, experiencing a simulation created by billions of neurons firing in complex patterns. What an incredible simulation. Look what it allows you to do. You can read these words and understand abstract concepts. You can imagine worlds that don't exist. You can make plans for the future. You can remember the past. You can feel love, admiration, curiosity, joy. You can create art, music, poetry. You can unravel the secrets of the universe. You can marvel at the very improbability of your existence. Your brain wasn't made to understand fundamental reality. It was made to survive on an African savanna 200,000 years ago. And yet, through an extraordinary combination of curiosity, persistence, and creativity, you managed to go beyond. You managed to discover things that no brain should be able to discover. And that, for me, is the most beautiful part. Not that you understand everything perfectly, you never will. Not that your brain will show you the objective truth, it never will. But that despite all these limitations, despite being trapped in an imperfect neural simulation, you can still discover profound truths about the universe. You can tell you're being deceived and still appreciate the elegance of the deception. You can understand your limitations and still push beyond them. You can live in an illusion and still touch reality through science and reason. Your brain wasn't designed to understand this, but somehow, against all odds, you understand it anyway. And that's absolutely extraordinary.